Today we are getting fetch as we dive into the musical remake version of Mean Girls. I am not breaking any plastic rules. I saw this on a Wednesday. I'm recording this on a Wednesday. It's going up on a Wednesday. It's going out into the interwebs in a Wednesday, so I am following plastic protocol. This updated musical version tells the same story that we all know and love about a foreigner who comes into North Shore and basically has a crash course in what it's like to be an American girl. It's also worth noting that the original writer, Tina Fey, also came back to pen this script as well. And I feel like it's really rare when you have that opportunity to present something into the world that gains a lot of traction, and then you have your opportunity to kind of perfect it a little bit more a few years later. Obvious example of this I think of would be Gillian Flynn, who wrote the book Gone Girl and then got to translate it on the screen for the 2014 David Fincher movie. What I really love about Faye coming back into the role of the writer is that she understands the material and the fandom that has been acquired over the last 20 years. There's a lot of great nods to the original, but also at the same time, it feels refreshing because a lot of secondary and even tertiary characters are really elevated and given new breaths of life. I always say that includes fan favorites like Janice and Damien, but then it also has some surprising elements like Katie's mom, played wonderfully by Jenna Fisher in this movie, and the girl who doesn't even go here. I really love the way that Faye celebrates the fandom of Mean Girls and everything that these characters have meant to people like me and the entire crowd that I got to see this movie with tonight. I put this on my most anticipated list a couple weeks ago when I was talking about movies that I was very much looking forward to, and I have to say that out of every movie that is coming out this year that I'm looking forward to, this was the one that I was most scared to see because of how much this movie means to me, and I'm really happy to report I really love this movie. Like I said, it pays homage to the source material really well, but then also at the same time, there are things that have aged in the original one that you can't really do now. And I'm really just glad to see where they kind of took these new characters in terms of direction. For one, we switched narrators, which it took me some time to get used to it, but by the end, I really did like the direction that they went with the narration aspect of the storytelling. This one is a musical. I know they're not advertising it, but this is a musical. Musicals are really hit or miss for me. I obviously have a lot of appreciation for a lot of the Disney ones that I grew up with, like Aladdin, The Little Mermaid, The Lion King, and even more recent ones like the live action version of The Little Mermaid. It made my top 10 list last year. And then there are some musicals that just don't land for me. And that was one of my biggest reservations coming into this film, was whether or not the musical aspect of the storytelling was going to land. And the music aspect of this, I was really kind of worried about. It really worked for me for the most part. I'd probably say that this is somewhere between a traditional musical and a rock opera. Some of the numbers in here are a little bit heavier rock, kind of like, radio rock. And then there were just some numbers that didn't land for me. And when I say the numbers specifically, it was the way in which the music was arranged. It just kind of felt like they were trying to do a lot in such a little bit of time. And so it kind of made the pacing of the music kind of feel a little weird or a little awkward in its delivery. And it happens maybe like 2 or 3 times, and it happens mostly in the first act of the movie as we're kind of getting to know these versions of the Plastics, Damien, Janice, Katie, North Shore. There is one musical number in particular that feels like it's supposed to be a nod to the original film, where the girls are going to the mall for the first time, and Katie has that monologue about being back in Africa and being in the watering hole. There's a point in here where one of the musical numbers pays homage to that, and it feels completely out of place. And I say that it feels out of place because there's really no context for it. The time that we spend with Katie prior to North Shore is very minimal, and the time that we hear about her life before North Shore is even more minimal. So to have a sequence like that, it just kind of felt really out of place for me. One of the things that I really did like about the musical numbers was any number that was revolving specifically around Regina George felt very cinematic. It felt like how you would imagine someone writing music about royalty, and it kind of bordered also on like MTV music videos. It felt very theatrical, very cinematic, and I had a blast with that. And on the subject of Regina George, Renee Rapp, who plays Regina George in this iteration, completely stole the show for me, hands down. Anytime she was on screen, she just had this magnetism about her and this charisma that really made her someone that you would really love to fear and be in awe of, but at the same time, you would just be completely afraid to be alone with her. Also, when you throw into the fact that she was a musician prior to coming into this, her music obviously, again, steals the show. The songs that are revolving around her, anytime she sings in the movie, it's incredible. Like, her performance alone is worth the price of admission. This movie's a little bit longer than the original film. It's probably about 25 more minutes. And like I said, they really use that very well to really kind of flesh out a lot of the opportunities that they missed first time around. I also really want to shout out Jaquil Spivey, who plays Damien in this movie. I really honestly did not expect to love his character as much as I did. Spivey behind Rapp is probably my favorite part of this movie. His chemistry with auli'i Carvalho. Sorry, I had to look up a name pronunciation. I'm not the best with names. Carvalho and Spivey have exceptional chemistry together. I really loved them. They were among one of my favorite parts of the film. I thought that both had just great character dynamics and really tremendous payoffs by the end, but also at the same time, there's a lot of history here that I thought they played off really well. Much like the original film, this one hits the comedic notes really well. And I think it comes back to the script by Fey having those roots with Saturday Night Live. Not only were you able to bring that to the original one, but you're able to bring it to this one as well, as kind of show a matured version of these characters with tremendous payoffs and really modern day nuances that make this a fun for not only fans of the original film, but modern fans that are getting introduced to this world. With that said, I think I'm ready to run this one through the Rorschach rating scale. And I'm actually going to do two completely different ratings for this. I'm going to give a general, what I think audiences will love, and then I'm going to give my score as a Mean Girls fan. So as a casual viewer, I'm going to say that this is probably going to rank about a 3.75, somewhere between a 3.5 and a 4 for most people. There is enough here for a casual fan to come into this movie, whether you've only seen one Mean Girls once or you've never seen it at all. There's enough here to really appreciate, from its music to its character dynamics to its writing, its comedy, and its celebration of life. As a Mean Girls fan, I'm going to go ahead and give this one a 4.5 out of 5. I loved this movie. I thought this is probably going to be one of the strongest films of the year. Now, I may eat that word, but I truly do. I stand by everything I said about the casual viewers, but there's enough here at payoffs that fans have been wanting to see for a long time, and plenty of callbacks to the original that just made this like stepping into nostalgia while still remaining planted firmly here. Where did the Mean Girls a musical rank for you guys? Comment below and let me know if it was fetch or not. This is typically a part of the video where I will pull something out of the movie, talk about it and how it relates to mental health, but I'm going to try something a little bit differently for this one and for tomorrow's review of the Book of Clarence. And that is actually give some time between the movie and the mental health discussion. So you guys can join us at some point next week on this channel. Hit the subscribe button below so that way when we do have the conversation about mental health and how it relates to Mean Girls, you guys don't miss it. But in the meantime, if you or someone you know is struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, click the links in the show notes below to check out our mental health resource library. Down there, you guys will find links to not only more movie reviews like this, but also links to our podcast, including our original 2004 discussion on Mean Girls, as well as links to our Patreon and other social media. So until next time, remember to stay fetch and have a great night.